So Joe Rogan is playing dumb still in 2024 about Jon Jones being on performance-enhancing drugs at some point during his career. Joe Rogan is still, in his mind, in this clip I'm about to show you on his podcast with Rampage Jackson that just went out today, he is still playing dumb like he's not sure whether or not Jon Jones took performance-enhancing drugs in his career. So I'm ending the discussion today. I'm done with this playing dumb from Joe Rogan, which he always does on this topic, because Joe Rogan himself, the same Joe Rogan that we're about to watch, I know Joe Rogan's a smart person. It's not difficult to figure that out. He's a very smart guy. And he retains a lot of information as well. I'm about to prove today that Joe Rogan is intentionally playing so dumb on this topic, despite being lectured on it himself. And basically, from what I'm hearing from this, and in my opinion, I have to say a lot of my opinion things before I make some accusations, this unequivocally proves that Jon Jones was on performance-enhancing drugs, at least at some point throughout his career. Derek from More Plates, More Dates is going to take over a part of this video and lecture you guys and lecture Joe Rogan on this for an extensive amount of time with a lot of information. And then years later, we'll play this clip right now, Joe Rogan is still playing dumb like he has no information on the topic whatsoever, despite being lectured by an expert on this topic for many, many minutes on their podcast. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm done with the picogram thing. Let it play. Let's listen to Joe Rogan play dumb about Jon Jones.
He was so scary, man.
Yeah, fuck. Big, tall motherfucker. I would like to see him go against Jon Jones.
I would have loved to have seen that back in the day.
They're talking about Alistair Overeem, by the way. They were bringing up PEDs. Alistair Overeem got brought up shortly afterwards. And you just heard Rampage say, I'd love to have seen him gone up against Jon Jones. Joe Rogan says, okay, well, back in the day.
But if again, you let him fight enhanced, because the difference between him and enhanced and unenhanced, he became an average fighter.
Now, if you let Overeem fight enhanced, the way he has said this infuriates me, because it suggests in some way that you're putting up a roided fighter in Alistair Overeem, if he's allowed to fight enhanced, against an example of a natural competing fighter in Jon Jones, the man with the most high-profile amount of failed performance-enhancing drug tests in UFC history. High profile, I'm talking, okay? There's obviously maybe been some guys lower on the roster that have maybe popped more, I'm not even sure. But out of the big names, Jon Jones is the one you think of when you think PED trouble in MMA right now. That's the case, right? And Rogan is like bringing up, well, if you let Overeem fight enhanced, I guess it could be fun. Like Jones is a natural athlete by... like he's an example of a natural athlete against Overeem, who, you know, I guess you'd have to let Overeem juice up for it, right? Crazy. And Rampage corrects him here.
Yeah, but Jon was enhanced too, though. If they would have went...
Yes, Rampage! You keep spitting the truth, brother! Don't let anyone ever let you shy away from that, Rampage. You say how it is, dude. I know you're probably only saying this because he choked you out, but still. You say it, you immediately put Joe in his place. That's what I'm talking about, Rampage. But Jones was enhanced too. Yes, he was.
Against each other, both enhanced?
At the time.
At the time.
So you think Jon was enhanced?
Yeah, I think...
The dumbness of that question from Joe Rogan at this point, 2024, Joe Rogan, an expert on MMA, has just said, do you think Jon was enhanced? When I show you the information that Derek from More Plates, More Dates gave Joe Rogan about Jon Jones's PED use, this question from Rogan is insanely dumb. He's being so intentionally dumb about this. It disgusts me. Okay?
I think it's proven.
Really?
I think it's proven. Chad Rampage.
At the time.
At the time.
So you think Jon was enhanced?
Yeah, I think it's proven.
Really? Because of the whole thing with the picograms, whatever the fuck that shit is?
Well, see,
all of a sudden, this guy has no clue. Joe Rogan has no clue. When I show you the information I'm about to show you, which I think a lot of people need to hear as well, People that are hearing me say Jones is on PEDs this, PEDs that, but haven't heard the information I'm about to show you, this is a good video for you guys as well to really get your knowledge up on the extensive history of Jon Jones's performance-enhancing drug use in MMA. Joe Rogan right there. Oh, you mean the picogram thing or whatever that shit was? He's playing so unbelievably dumb.
Really, because of the whole thing with the picograms, whatever the fuck that shit is.
Well, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but I just thought he got popped, so I assumed that.
And that's the problem with a lot of these. This was a thing that Joaquin Buckley did when he went on Ariel's show. He called him out for some things, but people aren't ready with their bullet points and notes and points to really get into an argument and debate about things. They're in a conversation. They're having fun. I think Rampage was just talking about the fact that he was going to go to Japan and breed. I don't know. Like, the conversation took some real curveballs, okay? So he's not ready to have a real formal presidential level debate. I shouldn't really say presidential level because the last presidential level debate was between... Well, one of the candidates was literally like brain damaged and dead inside and had dementia. So maybe I shouldn't say presidential level debate, but like a high intellectual level debate. He's not ready for that. You know what I mean? But Joe Rogan, what do you mean, that picogram thing? Joe Rogan has so much information on Jon Jones being on performance enhancing drugs, and he's still playing the game of, oh, that picogram thing.
He was in there.
He did, but the problem that he got popped with, there were so minuscule levels that it didn't make sense.
Yeah, he don't look like...
Joe Rogan has been lectured extensively about why that take is wrong. They were such little levels that it just didn't make sense. And he's bringing up the picogram thing. I hate the picogram thing because people forget about the other shit in terms of performance-enhancing drug history regarding Jon Jones. It's nothing to do with the picograms. It's nothing to do with the picograms. Everyone mentions when it comes to Jon Jones, those picograms, huh? It's so fucking annoying that they do that because it's nothing to do with the picograms. We have tests done on the testosterone production of Jones. I'm going to get into this in this video as well with the evidence from Derek. We have tests done on Jon Jones's testosterone levels. We have tests previously that Jon Jones has failed PED-wise that really do heavily indicate that he was using performance-enhancing drugs. And Rogan is still playing this dumb, oh yeah, those picograms game that he's playing right now.
He don't look like somebody...
He does steroids.
Yeah,
No, he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
But neither...
I hate that. And he says neither did Lance Armstrong, and he does provide some pushback. And they talk about Lance Armstrong for a bit, but I hate the take. It's the dumbest thing ever. He doesn't look like a guy on steroids. Steroids just don't build muscle only. And that is the stupidest thing. And it's 2024. And the fact that these two guys, who arguably should be more in the know about PEDs than other people, are still saying shit like that. Well, he doesn't look like a guy on roids. It annoys me to my core how dumb people play about this. Derek time. The Delt Lord himself. Death Star Delts. Super physiological amounts of information are about to be unloaded upon you guys. Okay? No sketch. Okay? But seriously, ready your ears for information about Jon Jones. Let's let it play. And this is the same Joe Rogan. This is before the interview with Rampage, by the way. This is the same Joe Rogan that you just heard playing dumb.
If you go back to his first positive test results, I believe he tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole way back in like 2016 or something.
Nobody talks about this. Oh, those picograms from 2020, right? Those picograms from 2019, whenever it was. 2 different performance-enhancing drugs in his system 2016. Tell us more about them, Derek.
So if you look at those 2 drugs, one of them is an aromatase inhibitor that you would use to prevent gyno formation usually. And then Clomid is like a fertility drug you would use to restore testosterone production, or in women, you use it to aid in fertility. So using those 2 drugs back then, to me, seemed like something you would be doing to either, prevent the gyno from what you were using at a time when it was less scrutinous, perhaps, and then the Clomid, to recover, or something was tainted is what his claim was. But we already have, history of him doing this or getting popped for something pretty stupid to get popped for way back in, 2015, 2016.
Wow, how interesting. What you can't see right now is that Joe Rogan is on the other side of a desk from this man, listening to him tell him this information. But remember, you think he's on roids? That picogram thing. But there really wasn't that much. Same Joe Rogan.
era, approximately. After that, he tests positive for turinabol, and then thereafter, the pulsing. But the thing that's interesting about that is when Nowitzki talks about this pulsing M3 metabolite, he...
Listen to this bit closely. I'm going to replay it. Very important, because a lot of people speak on the picograms to say why they think Jones could be on PEDs. They're nothing to do with it. Okay? Very important to listen to this piece of information.
That is, when Nowitzki talks about this pulsing M3 metabolite, he refers to, well, it's not him, he's just reiterating the research, and it's ultimately they use this reference point of Clomid pulsing as a kind of a proxy to exemplify, look, here's a drug that stores itself in fat tissue and pulses over time. So they use Clomid as an example of because they can't just give a human a shit ton of turinabol and like try and figure out if this is going to work or not. So they give them this fertility drug, or they've looked in the data and parsed out this information about Clomid pulsing, and they use that as a reference point for like, look, there's a drug that can pulse over time. But the interesting thing is, Jon Jones literally popped for Clomid before, but he's never had that pulse. So he has this turinabol that keeps pulsing, but the Clomid they use as the reference point of a drug that can pulse never pulsed for him.
So Jon Jones, the excuse that they gave him about the turinabol pulsing in his system, they never, ever had evidence that it could pulse in his system. They used a different drug that has pulsed before in the system of others to justify why turinabol was in the system of Jon Jones pulsing. Okay? They used it to justify why turinabol was in Jon Jones's system on his PED tests. They used another drug pulsing to say, oh, well, it must just be pulsing because this other drug pulses. But the turinabol that was in Jon Jones's system is a drug that has not been proven to pulse. And the drug that they used as evidence to suggest why it would be turinabol pulsing, even though it's never been proven, was a drug that Jon Jones had tested positive for years before the pulsing turinabol. And that wasn't in his system. It hurts me how little MMA fans understand this information. It really does, because they always bring up the picograms, and there's a lot more. It's like the tip of the iceberg is the picograms.
But didn't he say that the Clomid was from tainted food?
Yeah, but he still...
Look at Rogan. Look at Rogan! Businessman himself. Dana White's good friend. Didn't he say it was from tainted food, though? Like, that is going to disprove what Derek has just said. But Jones said it, Jones said it's from tainted food, dude. Like, that's a good, but Jones said, okay, sure, Joe, it was from tainted food.
Still got it in his system. So it's like, if you ingested Clomid, why is that not pulsing?
What causes something?
And then they go on to talk about the intricacies of pulsing and what causes something to pulse. But Derek just said it there. He's tested positive for something that they used to prove the theory of pulsing, okay? That wasn't what was in his system when they proved that it was just pulsing. So turinabol shows up in Jon Jones's system. UFC and USADA work together to see if they can prove if Jones is innocent or not. They would love it if he was innocent. I'm not going to say why. I'm not going to say they intentionally did anything to prove that he was innocent. I don't know what they did. I'm just saying I'm sure they would prefer him being innocent so they could make money off of him competing. That's just my guess. Okay? To do that, they used an example of another drug pulsing that isn't the drug that was found in the system of Jon Jones that was pulsing, to say, oh, I guess it's just pulsing like this other drug. They didn't even find evidence that turinabol can pulse. The example drug they used was a drug Jon Jones took years before that just wasn't in his system, as Derek just said. Crazy. Crazy, crazy stuff, but all good. The MMA fans just let them do that shit. Oh, pulsing. It's just pulsing, guys. That was the official statement given. Pulsing picograms. Solo, this turinabol just pulses. How do you know, Jeff Nowitzki? We never really got those answers. How do you know, dude? Because another drug completely irrelevant to it pulsed once. So that must mean this one is. Insane. Insane.
Something to pull.
We go to 3 minutes and 41 seconds, though. There's more.
So the
I know you're watching, Derek. Gayest way of saying so I've ever heard in my life. Okay? What's up, Derek? Big fan. Wish you'd get back to the Reddit gay trend turned me gay stories. Okay? Wish you'd get back to that gold mine of content because I used to really enjoy listening to those. This is the gayest way I've ever heard the word "so" be said before.
So the
All good though.
idea behind the pulsing is these metabolites that linger. They can store themselves in like fat tissue essentially, and they can like liberate themselves over time sporadically.
Has that been proven, or is that theoretical?
Yeah, and it was proven in Clomid data, which is interesting because Jon Jones literally is bought for Clomid.
But didn't pulse for that.
Yeah. So,
But it hasn't been proven before with this stuff?
No, with Turinabol, never.
So Joe Rogan has ingested that information from Derek from More Plates, More Dates. And it's the same Joe Rogan in this, playing that fucking dumb on it. Talking about, that time that he pulsed for Turinabol, the picograms. We are witnessing him ingest this information. This is the reason he had Derek on the show, was to talk about performance-enhancing drugs, and Derek from More Plates, More Dates, and obviously to make the connection of talking about USADA and performance-enhancing drugs in MMA.
So what's your take on that?
Like, I think personal.
And he comes in and he gives his take on it, but there's more. There's a minute and 10-second gap where they talk about his take on whether or not he thinks Jones did it. And he does. He does think that. He doesn't think that he intentionally took the Turinabol, but he does think that Jon Jones is on performance-enhancing drugs, which is now what we're going to get to. 5:19.
Like when he fought DC, they were so out of whack that it would not be explainable. Like when he fought DC.
He's talking about his testosterone levels or something to do with the word testosterone levels. Some kind of derivative of that word, testosterone. This is very important information as well that a lot of MMA fans do not know about the Daniel Cormier rematch and why it was overturned to a no contest. We heard it was pulsing picograms. That was for the Gustafsson fight, not the DC one. Or was it the DC? I think it might have been a DC one. But we heard that the story was, it was pulsing picograms, you guys, and we got to overturn it to a no contest. We never hear this information about the Jones-DC rematch. Take it away, Derek.
Like when he fought DC, they were so out of whack that it would not be explainable, in my opinion.
He's talking about test levels.
By anything other than some sort of suppression of your system via the usage of something. So to me,
not hard training, because hard training does suppress it, right?
Yeah, but to the degree where he's literally like a female, probably not.
Jon Jones' testosterone levels in the DC rematch were published. Testosterone of a female. World champ. In his prime, hard train test of a female in that fight.
So
Really? It was that bad?
Yeah, so normally the levels would be over 10 times what he had in general. I'd have to pull it up to remember exactly, but he was like in the single digits for urinary testosterone, which otherwise should be like, it was like 60 plus or something. He was like 4 or something. And it was multiple data points of his testosterone being single digits to a point that would
remember multiple data points
indicate significant suppression, in my opinion.
What
To a point that would indicate significant suppression, in my opinion.
What could be another possible explanation for it?
So Joe Rogan is just like, come on, Derek, give him a way out. That's literally what Joe Rogan has done throughout this whole second half of the video that I'm showing you here. This part with Derek is literally Joe Rogan like, it sounds like you're guaranteeing that he's on it, Derek. Please, there's got to be something that Jon Jones could use as an excuse. Come on. Same Joe Rogan, by the way. Same Joe Rogan. This is before this.
Other than significant suppression
Of the super low test levels? I don't know, castration.
Really? Is that bad?
I wish Derek would have laughed through the word. That's classic Derek. Chemical castration.
Yeah, it was pretty, I don't know, castration.
Really? Is that bad?
Yeah, it was pretty fucking bad, dude. It was like the equivalent of you only have your adrenal glands producing testosterone, basically. Like your balls are essentially non-functional.
But
And when people bring up Jones being on PEDs, they go, "Oh, the picograms, the picograms." There's so much more that the average MMA fan just has no idea about when it comes to Jon Jones. Fought DC with the testosterone levels of a chemically castrated man, with the testosterone levels of a female.
explain this then. If that's the case, then how would he perform well? Because if he's going into a fight with his testosterone that low.
Because if you have a drug that's suppressing your system, the drug you're taking presumably is what is driving your performance vectors that you
Something is replacing the testosterone, and that is what is powering his body.
deem useful enough to use in competition. So hypothetically, if I was using Turinabol, like all those athletes in Russia or whatever using Turinabol, you're going to have some suppression of your testosterone levels, which, you know, on paper could inhibit performance, but you're using the drug to drive performance. Okay. So even though your endogenous levels are low.
So he's talking about the fact that Turinabol, performance-enhancing drug, has been used before. It suppresses testosterone levels so much that something must be that it must be replacing them, I guess is what he's saying here. I might have lost that in the explanation of it. And it's the same Turinabol that has never been proven to pulse in a human body ever. That they said that they knew was just pulsing in Jon Jones as picograms. Never been proven ever in human history has that drug ever been proven to pulse inside a human being. They used a different drug doing it to justify why Turinabol does it. Because it was the drug they found in Jon Jones's system that really rapidly destroys your testosterone levels and replaces them. And what do you know, Jon Jones's test levels for the DC rematch were that of a chemically castrated male. But, you know, oh, you mean the picogram thing about Jones? No! There's so much! And all arrows point towards this guy being a career-long cheat. But the picogram thing? Even Jones will do it. Oh, really? A picogram? I think Jones even said at one point, you guys are going to say I'm on PEDs for a pinch of salt in an Olympic-sized swimming pool? I'm pretty sure that was a quote from Jon Jones. No. There's so much more that now gets brushed over because of that stupid word, picograms. Sorry. We go to 743 because there's so much more.
But if he has a certain, even if he has crushed test, the room, if they're not looking for a certain drug that's not on their list and you're using it full board, whatever dose you want, because they can't detect it because they don't even know it exists, then that's going to be significantly performance enhancing.
Okay, so then we're talking about something like the Balco Clear, that kind of a deal?
Potential.
All of a sudden, Joe Rogan's a genius, guys. Are you sure it couldn't have just been him eating something? You're talking about the Balco Clear here, I see. Joe Rogan is suddenly a genius by the end of this clip on the topic of performance-enhancing drugs in MMA. This Joe Rogan that I played to you at the start of the video. Remember, you talking about that picogram thing? I mean, I guess. Let me see if I can find it again.
That he got popped with whatever the fuck that shit is.
Proven.
Really? Because of the whole thing with the picograms, whatever the fuck that shit is?
Well, see, I don't pay a whole lot
Whatever the fuck that shit is.
attention to it.
That he got popped with, they were so minuscule levels that it didn't make sense.
And he don't.
He's just so dumb on that. He has no idea. Joe Rogan has no idea. Oh, whatever the fuck that is, the Turinabol picograms, whatever the fuck that is.
Okay, so then we're talking about something like the Balco Clear, that kind of a deal?
Potentially.
And this is before. Dude. It's funny watching the whole fucking community of paid mouths. No sketch. That was a good pun, actually. I didn't even fucking realize how good that was. This paid mouth is just saying, they're just acting so dumb intentionally. The amount these guys cover for Jones. Dillashaw's probably like, fuck, I should have never said I did it. Dillashaw's pissed, dude. Dillashaw came out like, okay, guys, you got me. He should have never said that shit. Because I bet you Dillashaw probably would have still been competing now. But because he admitted it, they were like, oh, you fucking idiot. What have you done? He's banned for 2 years, guys. I bet you they were ready to fucking cover for his for his ass. But no, Dillashaw was just retarded, basically, by admitting it. How dare he? We let it play again, though. 10:06. I think this is Derek summing it up in a way. The whole situation. Just to really get it into Joe Rogan's head.
Different reasons, but ultimately seeing that level in his urine, testing for a random compound, having in the past tested positive for a fertility drug and an aromatase inhibitor you would only use in the context of like drug use, essentially, intentionally in most cases. It's just like highly improbable. I don't think that he's at least tried to do some shit to get around the system.
And that's basically what this podcast was, essentially. It was just, or this whole clip was just Derek really trying to zero in on Joe Rogan that Jon Jones has in fact taken performance-enhancing drugs in his career. He didn't say it unequivocally, like, for sure, because Derek is not, you know, an all-seeing, all-knowing being. He's not far off, but he's not an all-seeing, all-knowing being that can just soul-read everyone and absolutely understand the situation. But what he's saying is, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? He's just not saying it 100% unequivocally because nobody can. But what he is, but what he's saying is, guys, is that this bitch has been cheating his whole fucking career. Okay? But remember, this genius in Derek More Plates, More Dates just lectured Joe Rogan on all of this information outside of the stupid little picogram thing. And then Joe Rogan, whenever it's brought up again about Jones cheating.
Oh, he got popped, so I assumed that he was in there.
He did, but the problem that he picograms.
Yeah, I think it's proven.
Really, because of the whole thing with the picograms, whatever the fuck that shit is.
Well, see,
No, Joe, you person who has no idea about this whatsoever. Not the picogram thing. All of the information you have been given to prove that Jon Jones is on performance-enhancing drugs. You paid mouth, dumb playing cunt. Jones is on PEDs. He has been his whole fucking career, and he still ain't knocked a man down in his entire fucking career when it comes to fights that aren't scored no contests because he had the testosterone levels of a castrated fucking male. Imagine how shit John would be natural. Can't even drop a man with a punch in his entire... He's had a long career. In the heavier weight classes. Has never dropped a man with a punch ever. And he's on the sauce. Imagine how shit he would be without it. They'd be walking through him. See you later. Goodbye. They'd be walking through him like Reyes.